Now here's a law. Resistance in a good circuit should consume all of the volts. So the battery voltage should drop all of its push as it passes by the resistance, or it flows past the resistance. Period. There's no exception to that. Be sure you understand that principle. In a circuit, we have voltage, which is the pressure or push, and we have resistance, which is the opposition to that push. Now remember, the purpose of volts is to overcome the resistance in the circuit, and that pushes the work in the circuit, or makes the device work. If that purpose is accomplished, there should be nothing left over. So it might look like this. The voltage should completely push it over, and you should drop to zero. There should be nothing left, 0 volts. Now in reality, it should not be 0. An acceptable amount is less than half a volt. So really it should be 0.2, maybe 0.1. But if it reads 0, you're really looking at an open circuit. Now, what if the opposition is just too great? Well, then the push can't get the opposition all the way out. So you don't drop all the voltage. Some of the voltage is left over. It's peeking right through there. So you can see it. You see it on your multimeter. Here's a fact. This will never happen. Resistance has no push. It only opposes the push. Remember, the purpose of volts is to overcome the resistance in a circuit, and the evidence of the success is dropping that voltage, and the evidence of the failure is remaining voltage. Now, what is a circuit? Well, by definition, it means movement that starts and finishes at the same place. So basically, it's a circle. So circle is a lot like a coin. It has two sides, heads and tails. And a circuit has two sides as well. It has the positive, the power, and the ground. Now this is a completed circuit in a circle. You have your battery, and there's our circle. Now we would have a power side, you would have a ground side. Now there would be a fuse in there to protect the circuit. There would be some kind of a load, let's call it a motor, resistance, some kind of a load, and there should be a switch. When we close the switch, the circuit becomes closed. Now remember the two-sided coin? We have a two-sided circuit as well. We have the power side and we have the ground side. This then is the two-sided circuit. Now it's true, we don't have circle cars. Diagrams are not drawn in circles. They are always drawn in straight lines like this. Now remember, at the beginning of this video I said there are only 4 failures that can take place in an electrical system. Well, I'm going to explain those 4 failures, eliminate the clutter, but first we should know what a good circuit should look like. On a good circuit, good means there are no faults. This is what you should always expect from a voltage drop test. Now remember that on a voltage drop test, the load must be working. So anticipate here. What should we have? Here's our circuit. Now drawn in a straight line, you still have your power and ground, your fuse, your switch, and your load. Now we have to close the circuit, so we have to close the switch. This is a good circuit. And we're going to have a two-sided side, a power side and a ground side. So anywhere on this side, you should have system voltage. Let's say it's 12.26. Anywhere on this side that you test, from the battery to the load, if you're testing anywhere in there, you should have your battery system voltage. So if you put your multimeter here, you should have 12.26 system voltage, both sides of the fuse, and both sides of the switch, and to the load. Now, anywhere on this side, which would be the ground side, you should have very close to 0.02. Anywhere on this side that you test. So with your multimeter, you should see 0.02 here, 0.02 there. Now, if the reading on either side is not what you expect, you have a problem on that side. Now, let me ask you this. What if the control or the switch was on the ground side? So you see our switch is between the battery and the load. Let's make that switch on the other side, or put the control on the ground side. Do the laws change? Think about that for a minute. Do the laws change? No, the laws do not change. Now remember, electricity is perfect. It never makes a mistake. Only the boundaries change. The load still consumes all of the volts. Now let's compare the before and the after. So the laws don't change at all, only the boundaries. Now we test this from a voltage drop test. Now let me ask you another question. What if the load isn't working? So let's take the load away. So in other words, the switch is closed, you can see that, but the load is not working. Do the laws change? Think about that for a second. Anywhere on this side, if you're testing, you should have system voltage. And anywhere on this side, you should have ground. So no, the laws do not change. Remember, electricity never makes a mistake. Now here, even the boundaries don't change. It's just simply the load doesn't work. If you have power everywhere from the battery feed to the load, and you have ground everywhere on the ground side, then your load isn't working. So in this case, even the boundaries don't change. If the load isn't working, it is an open or is a fault. Now remember, nothing can pass through an open. An open in the load means it can't consume the voltage. Now let's go back to this circuit. Let me ask you another question. What if the fuse is blown? Do the laws change? Well, let's test it. If our fuse is blown, you would have system voltage to it, and you would have ground. As you test, you would have ground everywhere. Because of continuity through the ground side and through the load, you would have ground to one side of the fuse, but you'd have power to the other side of the fuse. So no, the laws do not change. Remember, electricity is perfect. It never makes a mistake. Now the boundaries change. If the fuse is blown, it is an open or a fault. But if you look at your test points, you can prove that. Remember, nothing can pass through an open. So a blown fuse is an open. Now let me ask you another question. What if the switch is bad? So let's take our switch. If it is bad, nothing can get through it, right? So the switch would be open. Do the laws change? Well, let's take a look. If you're testing, you'd have system voltage from the battery to the fuse, the opposite side of the fuse to the load. You'd have power through the load and all the way to the switch. Anywhere on that side, the power side, and on the ground side, you would have ground, and you'd have it to the switch. So no, the laws do not change. Remember, electricity is perfect. It never makes a mistake. The boundaries can change, but if the switch is bad, it is an open fault. Nothing can pass through an open. Now, what if the ground is bad? Do the laws change? Let's take a look. No, the rules do not change. Remember, electricity is perfect. It never makes a mistake. Now, the boundaries can change. If the ground is bad, it is an open. So as you tested for this, because nothing can pass through an open, you would have system voltage at the battery, both sides of the fuse, both sides of the load, and both sides of the switch, because they all have continuity. Now, you would have ground at the ground point, but that ground, if it is open, could not pass through, so you would only have ground at the ground. If the ground is bad, it is an open. It is a fault, and nothing can pass through the open.